To listen ad-free, visit zinspod.co/subscribe. Starting at $2.99 a month, you'll also get access to our exclusive bonus content episodes when you join through Patreon or Apple subscriptions. Thanks for supporting the show. Hello, everybody. We are doing a free swing shift episode here in honor of Investigation Discovery releasing their three-part, it was 3 parts, right?
Yeah.
3-part series on Tom Randolph.
The Black Widower.
The 6 wives of Tom Randolph.
Yes. We did a 4-part series on Tom Randolph because his case came to an end in April, just 3 months ago here in Las Vegas, and we wanted to cover that whole story. And it's kind of cool that we weren't the only ones who had that idea. Investigation Discovery also had that idea.
Yeah, so we were in investigating, researching, recording, blah, blah, blah. Like they
were as well.
They were getting ready for theirs. We didn't know about it though. When it was announced, we were like, "Whoa!" And we have some things to say. So we have watched it, and we have opinions.
We have notes.
You know what we're doing? You know what we're doing right now?
What?
We're channeling I Think Not.
We kind of are.
We are kind of channeling I Think Not. Oh
Ellen and Joey.
Do you think they're listening?
They might be.
I like to think they're listening.
I'd like to think they are.
We should reach out to them and tell them to listen.
Okay.
All right. Anyway,
there will be way fewer show tunes. Not as many show tunes as Ellen and Joey.
Yeah. That's for everyone's protection.
Yes.
You don't want to hear that. Trust me. So yeah, it was a 3-parter, 3 episodes. And what I did when we were watching it was I kind of broke it up into a few different, like we were actually taking notes while we were watching it. So nerdy. Because I was like, well, did they do a better job than us? Because they have a much bigger budget.
Yeah.
And by a bigger budget, I mean, a budget. So we don't have one of those. But they have a big budget.
Yeah.
And
also, obviously iron stomach, because they sat down and interviewed Tom Randolph, and I don't know I shouldn't say you couldn't pay me to. I don't know what the dollar amount is to get me to sit down and have a conversation with that man. It's
unclear to me. I mean, I guess definitely some of it was new. And we'll get into how they structured it, but it's unclear to me how much of the Tom Randolph interview stuff was new, but it's very possible it was new because we listened to too much Tom Randolph interview, and the stuff that he said in the Investigation Discovery was different. It was similar enough.
Yeah.
But it was like
story hasn't changed.
Yeah, his story. Obviously his story hasn't really changed, but there was some new stuff that he said.
Yeah,
and he's obviously just full of it. He's just a liar.
And he loves to talk about his sexual prowess.
Ugh, that's all we're gonna say about that.
Okay.
Ugh, so gross. So the way they chose to structure it is it was almost, I found it really weird.
Okay. Say more.
It was almost like his daughter Krista was telling the story.
Yes.
Beginning to end.
Yes.
For all 3 episodes.
Yes.
Which I found really weird.
Yeah, she was like the narrator.
So number 1, it's just Krista. It's not Justice, his son.
Yes.
From the first marriage.
Yes.
They are from his first marriage.
Yes.
But that was very interesting. It was interesting to hear the perspective of his daughter, who was obviously in his corner because, that's her dad, and she has a very skewed view and couldn't conceive of a world where he was a sociopathic serial killer, basically, killing multiple people.
But her arc throughout the episodes was very clear too.
Yeah.
She learned a lot.
She did.
Her eyes were opened.
Yeah, that's true. So what I did was I broke it up into 4 different sections. So the sections were new things we're learning, like stuff they were able to research that we didn't know, stuff we think is wrong, stuff we got wrong. I don't think we wrote anything under stuff we got wrong.
No, I don't.
Maybe one thing.
Oh, okay.
And generally interesting things.
Ah, yes, because there were many generally interesting things.
Yeah. So the first episode. So the other thing was when we told the story, we told it in such a way that we broke it up into like the first episode was about the most recent murder of Sharon, right?
Sharon and Mike, yep.
And the case with Sharon and Mike, and so we kind of told that pretty thoroughly, but we held some of it back. We
got to the part where the detectives realized that Tom had a history.
Yes, they started to realize he was sketchy, and they were like,
and the prosecutors were like, "We're never going to get a conviction on this guy. You have to do more."
And they were like, "Okay, we're going to do research." Then a second episode was like,
Every Wife But Beckie.
Every Wife But Beckie. Thank you. So his first wife, third,
Catherine,
fourth, and fifth wives.
Yeah.
And then the third episode was Beckie.
Was Beckie's story? Yeah.
And I think it was important to tell his first wife's story first to get the context, to establish that he was kind of a sociopath and an abuser and a drug dealer and other bad words. And so I really like the way and then the fourth episode was about the
Sharon and Mike's trial.
Sharon and Mike's trial. And then the appeal, and then the second trial.
Yep.
So I am biased, but I like that structure.
Yeah.
I don't know who came up with that structure, but I like that structure.
Yeah, I like that too. I think they just they did the same thing. They started with Sharon, and then they went basically through his life through chronologically, and then came back to the trial. So they kind of had the same idea as us with that arc, but
I feel like they didn't hold anything back.
No, it was very strange. It wasn't like they could have just made one movie because they didn't really do like a cliffhangery thing between the 2 episodes, or no episode really stood on its own. It just kind of bled into the next one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was 3 hours.
Yeah.
And the other thing, okay, so things that were generally interesting, actually, let's go back to the new items we're learning. Like they talked about Eric Tarantino in the first episode.
Yeah, and they really leaned into
which was that's the guy that he hired to kill Beckie,
his second wife.
Wife. Why are you telling that so early?
Yeah,
like you're giving away. Like that's I don't think that's good storytelling.
It also gets like muddy because there are so many characters, and it's like they're showing this guy, they're showing this wife, they're talking. It was. I wouldn't say they were jumping around, but like they did carry.
I would say they were jumping around.
Carry Tarantino through the whole story, even though I guess he played a big
Krista
role in the middle.
And Tarantino really were like
the narrators. Yeah,
were the narrators
with Tom, plenty of Tom.
Yeah, too much Tom.
And you know what Investigation Discovery did that we would never do? I mean, not with a case like this where the criminal's been convicted technically twice, but once and then appeal. And then again, we made it clear that he was guilty, but Investigation Discovery seemed to kind of go with, was this a coincidence? Maybe
they actually started with that.
Bad luck? Was it?
I mean, they
are we exaggerating? Are we reading too much into this? Like they kind of tried.
Who was it in the first episode that they were talking to, interviewing, and he was like, they had already made up their minds that he was guilty before they even charged him.
Oh yeah, I don't remember who said that.
But also, like,
did.
Bro,
maybe his defense
you know what prosecutors do? Prosecutors think you're guilty before the thing starts.
That's why, yeah.
Like that's their job. They have to believe you're guilty because they're prosecuting you for murder.
I think it was one of his attorneys, but yeah.
Yeah, and we did get some insight into the attorneys from the second trial that we didn't have before in the third episode, and the defense attorneys. I guess we can talk about them. They also claimed that Mike in the first episode was semi-homeless, but that was not our understanding at all.
No, I mean, he lived, like, I understood that he lived with his family,
aunt and uncle.
his aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
I don't.
Which is not semi-homeless.
Yeah, and I don't think there was any, again, there's no need to describe him as that as
a semi-homeless man, no.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about Mike and how he was down on his luck, and
yeah.
And I did not like that.
I didn't like it either. I mean, Mike did kill Sharon.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, Tom,
to be clear,
set it up.
Yeah, he was manipulated into it.
Yeah, he basically hired him as a hitman with no intent of ever paying him to
do the work. He groomed him to be a hitman,
and then killed him, and tied a little. He felt like he tied a little bow on that one. He was just going to go on with his life. No, sorry, Tom.
Yep, and we also noticed that 20% into episode number 1. They revealed that he had 6 wives and 4 of them were dead.
Yeah. And what we thought that was kind of like the thing we kind of held back at the end of our first episode. We thought that was like
yeah. We thought that made it more interesting.
But I mean, I don't know. It's like, I don't know.
I even have in my notes that they're jumping back and forth to the beginning of the story and the end of the story.
Yeah, they really were. And they had like some of her friends also as interviews. Yeah, it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Not to say that it wasn't good and those interviews weren't compelling, but I mean, we studied this case. We worked hard on it. We wrote episodes and we recorded episodes on it, so we knew it really well. And I did wonder how would it be for someone who wasn't as familiar with the case? I wonder.
I'd be curious
if it was confusing as to who Deirdre is or who.
Yeah.
These people are.
But when people showed up, we were like, oh, look, it's Deirdre.
Yeah,
we know her.
Yeah, exactly. They also, I mean, I already mentioned how gross Tom is. Gross being an understatement, but I really felt Investigation Discovery worked too hard to try and make him seem cool.
Yeah, they're like playing, I have a note in here. It's like playing upbeat rock and roll music.
Yeah. Yeah, letting him brag about his past relationships, like how many girlfriends he had. It was like
his sexual exploits.
It's so immature. Like, I don't think men these days behave that way, but he had to brag about, all of that stuff, which is just, it's offensive. It's disgusting. He claimed that he was like a drummer and he just all this bravado. I feel like he said sex, drugs, and rock and roll like 1,000 times in that documentary.
I'm just a rock and roll guy.
Yeah, grow up.
And then he said that about Sharon too. Oh, she went to Woodstock. How cool is that, man?
Yeah, like, oh God.
Why would I hurt her? She went to Woodstock.
Yeah, okay.
Because you're a sociopath. I don't know why. You tell me you're the sociopath.
I felt sad for his first wife because she didn't want her face shown in the documentary. She participated and she did participate, but she didn't want her face shown. I hope she's not getting harassed because she definitely doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But they didn't include anything in the documentary like we had included about some of the abuse she endured. That story we told about how he threw the oatmeal. That was like a big part of the story, and they never mentioned the oatmeal.
And they never mentioned how she had to relocate to Washington State to get away from him.
Yep.
Even though they shared the 2 kids.
Yep.
They never talked about how she was friends with Beckie, his second wife, and how they were keeping in touch and how she was very worried for Beckie. It was almost like they told it in a kind of a pro-Tom. Like they framed it in a pro-Tom-ish way.
Mm-hmm. Like when that second episode started and they had that legal analyst, Beth Karas, on, and she was just saying like, he was pre-law and he was so smart. Beth, I mean, like she was just talking about like, they had the attorney saying like how he was so smart. And
they were talking about how he had an alibi for when Beckie was killed, but he really didn't.
I know. I thought Beth.
I mean, he had an alibi, but it was a terrible alibi that didn't hold up at all.
Yeah. And if you thought about it for more than 1 second, it was.
And it was an insane miscarriage of justice that he was able to fool the jury into getting an acquittal.
Yeah. I don't think we talked about that a little bit. I believe that he testified in his own defense, but he was somehow, he was afraid that he wasn't going to get a fair trial in Utah because he was selling drugs, and he had this like rock and roll lifestyle, blah, 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 was cheating on all his wives, blah, blah, blah. And so he thought he wasn't getting a fair trial, but the man takes a stand and he says, oh yeah, I was having an argument with Beckie. I told her that I was like, that she should just go ahead and, kill herself. And then I left and, went to a bar and got drunk and then got pulled over for a DUI, but I didn't kill her because obviously I was busy getting drunk and going to my mom's house, and the mom vouched for him, and then he got pulled over.
And you could tell he was building an alibi because he was like, oh, I went to a bar and 40 people saw me at that bar, so I definitely didn't kill her.
Yeah. Okay. It's a tragedy that...
And she was like on a waterbed. So yeah, she was killed on a waterbed, and the waterbed heater was turned off. So the waterbed was very cold.
Right.
So
it was difficult to determine exactly when she had died.
Yeah, her time of death couldn't be determined within, plus or minus 24 hours. So his alibi didn't at all cover the full period where she could have been killed.
It's just nuts that they would have accepted his testimony as being true.
Yeah. I will say in episode 2, one really interesting thing we learned was from Gaina, and how she had the diamonds removed from her engagement and wedding rings. She had them removed and had them replaced with cubic zirconias, and then gave the rings back to him and then pawned the real diamonds.
I was like, you go, Gaina.
That was amazing. I was so happy for her. She was like, I thought that was fair.
When we told the story, we told about how Gaina said that he was cleaning the gun and the gun went off, and she knew that he was trying to kill her and make it look like an accident. But what we never heard before was Tom. This is how, probably like you said, these are new interviews. Tom claimed that he purposely was shooting into some 2x6s or something. Like he was purposely he wasn't cleaning the gun. He was purposely firing it in the house near her. What is that? That is just the most reckless thing I've ever heard. You think that exonerates you because you were, oh no, I didn't accidentally go off. I was purposely shooting it.
Yeah. It's good that she got out.
It's really good.
Yeah, she was lucky.
Oh, this was a part, I made a note about this because you pointed this out. There was a weird part where his mom, Frances was his fourth wife. So after Gaina and they broke up, Frances was, or fifth wife, sorry.
Fifth wife, yeah.
Frances was the woman who had the heart condition and then had surgery and then mysteriously passed away alone in the hospital room after
when they were alone together.
Surgery. Yeah. Even though she was doing well, somehow something happened. That his mom, he's just saying like, how he was so in love with her and how she was so good for him and blah, blah, blah. And then his mom said that he could either be a lawyer or be in love and get married to Frances. And he chose to marry Frances because he was so in love. On what planet are those the two choices? You can either be a lawyer or be married.
Well, I mean, no lawyers are married, so that's really
true. I guess.
That's why no lawyers are married. Because they have to choose. Do they want to go to law school or they want to be married? This is insane.
My God. Yeah. And it was also strange that they said that I guess it was his defense attorneys claimed that the prosecution claimed that the wives didn't know about these insurance policies. The life insurance policies he had taken out on them, which I think is very strange.
That is strange.
I don't know why they would claim that. That seems a little weird. I don't know how true that is for.
And the fact that the defense attorneys were like, yeah, this seems like appropriate business.
Yeah, they were like that.
Like he's taking out life insurance policies on them, but not on himself.
For their benefit if he were to die. At least we have not heard one shred of evidence that was.
At least he took out policies on himself and them. In case
you would be
one
like,
of them
that is
died.
what a husband and wife do.
Yeah, you'd be like,
or a married couple do.
That's a normal thing. And we also found out that he took out, I don't know if he took it out or he tried to take it out on his girlfriend, the one that he was with
Lizzie. Yeah. Who gets a life insurance policy on their girlfriend? I mean,
that's a bad sign. That's a red flag.
Yeah, I feel like
that's the reddest flag I've ever seen.
Like that's going to be am I the asshole read out on two hot takes or something. Somebody's going to write in that on Reddit about, am I the asshole for
taking out a life insurance policy
on my girlfriend.
On my girlfriend that I've been dating for 2 months? Yes, you are.
You are. That's a red flag. There was so much that we included about Tom's relationship with Eric Tarantino, because that was so key in understanding how Tom was able to groom Mike to be a hitman. And they didn't talk about any of that sensational stuff. I almost felt bad that we included it, because it does feel sensational. But I mean, Eric said that Tom beat him severely. Like Eric says so many times in the investigation discovery that he was afraid of Tom. He was afraid for his life.
Well, we included it because it's important that you understand that Eric Tarantino didn't just like go along with it. He was terrified that Tom was going to kill him.
Yeah. But they didn't.
And he was only 19.
I know. That was something that I don't think really registered with me when we did it, that he was that young. And but they didn't talk about Tom beating him. Of all the stuff they included, they didn't include that. And they also didn't include the weird fact that he used to sing that song, that Rod Stewart song about murdering her. Maybe they were like, this is too much.
They did. Eric did talk about how he was afraid of Tom, but in the documentary, it's like you don't know why.
Yeah.
Why are you so afraid of him?
Yeah. That's true.
And that should have been explained.
One of the reasons why I was looking forward to watching the Investigation Discovery documentary was because Tom's third wife, Leona, or Lee, as he called her, there's nothing out there about her. And
they found some information.
They found out
nice.
Very little, a couple more pictures of her.
Yeah.
And the type of cancer that she passed away from, but
he had nothing good to say about her.
No, he said some weird, bizarre things about her, but he says weird things about all his wives.
Yeah.
Things that if your spouse said about you, you would be offended.
Yeah,
even though the spouse is pretending to think that that's complimentary, it's actually deeply offensive.
Yeah.
It's just a twisted mess to hear him talk about any of his wives.
Yeah.
It's also really, there was so much direct quotes from his mom, where his mom
a lot of interviews with his mom too.
Yeah, where she really vouched for him. I mean, we knew that
she vouched hard for him.
But like,
I was his alibi. There's no way he could have done this.
Yeah. Frances told me she wanted to have a lot of insurance and she wanted Tom to raise her daughter. Like, really? I mean, maybe, but I don't. Okay, whatever you say.
I don't know. In all the research we did, she seemed quite the enabler.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, did Frances really do that? I mean, come on. But it was cool that they put such a spotlight on Eric Tarantino as the hero, as he was like the star witness in the trial. I mean, I noticed that he's even wearing like a Superman shirt.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yes, in the interviews with him, he's wearing a Superman shirt, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't notice that.
He also was drinking coffee out of a mug, and the mug is tilted, but I know the mug says "Get shit done" or something to that effect. Like, it's like,
that is funny.
They tried too hard to make Tom look cool, in my opinion, but Eric Tarantino also looked really cool.
Yeah. I'm just so glad Tom's in jail.
I know. There were some really moving interviews with Mike Miller's brother and sister that we did not have, obviously, access to when we did ours, but I would have liked to have included because, you know, Mike had a family. I mean, Mike did kill Sharon, but Mike was murdered and his death did affect his brother and sister deeply. And they were, you know, they wanted justice as well. They wanted Tom to be convicted for the murder of their brother. So, there were some, like I said, great interviews with them.
Yep.
And they had an interview with one of the jurors. And that was really insightful.
That was really interesting. Yeah, we never saw that. That was something they got.
Yeah, which I thought was so good. That really added so much to the story.
Yep.
So that's where their big budget came in. At least they got interviews with some of these people. And Dean O'Kelly.
They didn't really talk about Dean O'Kelly. He was like the star of our podcast.
I know.
And he was the star of the case, really. Yeah. he was the one that stuck with it for 10 years, him and his partner.
Yeah.
For a decade, more than a decade, 15 years.
Yep.
And they chased down everything. And the only time he appeared was in the 3rd episode as the final witness in the 2nd trial, right?
Yep.
Or, I mean, they showed him a little bit in the walkthrough video, which they didn't really show very much of.
Yeah.
But you can't, I mean, if you're trying to build some sort of tension and you show that whole video, you can't.
No.
There's no tension there because it's incredibly obvious that he is entirely making stuff up. And you can also tell that he is high as a kite.
Oh, yeah.
We did notice that.
And I did wonder if he had done that on purpose. Like to have some kind of plausible deniability in the end or whatever.
Possibly.
Because I don't know. I wish he just, I mean, I guess like it's fine. He made his own mistakes, but you know, it gave like a reason for people to say, well, you know, of course he didn't get it all right. He was medicated.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating. I made a note of one of the parts that I found the most compelling in the the cross-examination of Dean O'Kelly by Tom's defense attorney. So the defense attorney, if you all remember that, you know, when Tom shot Mike wasn't wearing the ski mask. We know that because there were no holes in the ski mask, no blood on it. It was just in the corner of the garage.
Right.
So the prosecution's theory was the plan was for Mike to kill Sharon, Tom to come home, Mike to leave, and Tom to call the cops, right? I think that was the prosecution's theory. So, of course, after Sharon was dead, the prosecution's theory, Mike takes off the mask so he can have a conversation with Tom. He doesn't have to hide his face anymore, you know. So the defense attorney's like, hey, well, you know, if the plan was for Mike to kill Sharon, why would he wear a mask at all? Like, there's no need to hide who he is. Like, Sharon's never going to testify against him. And Dean O'Kelly said, well, if you're going to shoot someone that knows you wouldn't want them to see your face when you do it. And I was like, oh yeah, that explains why Mike was wearing a ski mask at all. Because I do kind of agree with the defense. Well, you know, why would he be hiding his identity? For what? For who? It's in contrast to your theory, but Dean O'Kelly saying like, actually, he didn't want Sharon to know it was him because he was friends with her. He had dinner at her house. He had done work around her house. It's actually really kind of scary and sad to think about.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else here?
Not really. So that's what we thought of the. It was definitely an enjoyable.
Insightful.
I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't. We didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, we didn't. I'm sorry, not enjoyable. It was interesting.
Interesting. Like we said, there was not a lot, but some good bits of testimony and statements from people that we knew were involved in the case that we had never heard before. Like, Mike's uncle testified that he knew that the relationship with something was up with that relationship with Tom because, he was, you know, Mike's saying he's doing work for Tom, but he wasn't actually getting any work. He wasn't making any money. He was just like hanging out with him. So his uncle knew there was something off there. Yeah. So that, I mean, it's just like a lot of good little bits like that really added to the story and made the people, you know, the emotions of the people really come through their experience for some of them. But we do recommend you watch it after you listen to our podcast.
I was going to say, if you only listen to one multi-part series about Tom Randolph this year,
yes,
it should be our podcast.
Yes.
But if you want a little more, which I can't imagine you would want, you should not want that. But if you do, check out the Investigation Discovery.
You know, it does. You can see their faces. You can, you know, there's so many pictures of his wives, and like I said, some really good information from Eric Tarantino and Mike's family that we weren't able to share when we did the recording. But this show is hot. I saw a headline on the Huffington Post just today, July 22nd, that it's the #1 show on Max. I don't know if that's True. Number one, I did not look, but I think that's what the headline said.
That is insane.
I don't know if it's like number one true crime or if it's just number one altogether. But it is, yes. This startling docuseries is a top show. Excuse me, I want to get it right. Is a top show. It's by Caroline Bologna.
I hope that people will see the show and want more, and they will Google it and they will find our 4-part series.
Yes.
That is my hope for us.
Yes, because we tried to put the victims first and tried to take some of the focus off of Tom, because like, screw Tom, man.
Yeah, it's hard to, because he is a narcissistic sociopath.
And he loves to talk about himself.
He really does. He'll talk to you all day about how great he is.
Oh my God, it's so offensive.
Unbelievable.
Well, thanks for hanging in with us as we did this kind of breakdown of the show and our feelings about it. If you watched it, please comment on our social media. You can always send us an email at podcast@sinsandsurvivors.com, and maybe we'll share some of your thoughts in another bonus episode.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to say the thing?
Sure. Thanks as always for listening, and remember, what happens here happens everywhere.
Thanks for listening. Visit sinspod.co/subscribe for exclusive bonus content and to listen ad-free. Remember to like and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads @Sins and Survivors. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. You can contact us at questions@sinsandsurvivors.com.
If you or someone you know is affected by domestic violence or needs support, please reach out to local resources or the National Domestic Violence Hotline. A list of resources is available on our website, sinsandsurvivors.com. Sins and Survivors, a Las Vegas true crime podcast, is researched, written, and produced by your hosts, Sean and John. The information shared in this podcast is accurate at the time of recording. If you have questions, concerns, or corrections, please email us. Links to source material for this episode can be found on our website, sinsandsurvivors.com.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the podcast creators, hosts, and their guests. All individuals are innocent until proven guilty. This content does not constitute legal advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with legal professionals for guidance.